Well, you're listening to the Biscuits and Gravy Show once again. I'm Jason Kurtman. On the other end of the line is my other co-host, Jim Arthur Fonzarelli Nelson. How are you doing, Jim? How are you doing?
Pretty cool.
Yeah? You still snap your fingers and the girls come running? But you broke the jukebox, didn't? No, it didn't work, did it? Okay.
No, that doesn't work like that.
Yeah, well, I guess Gary Marshall just could bestow that gift to so many people, and you weren't one of them. So, all right. Well, Jim, how'd your day go? Tell me about your day.
Not too shabby, except that I'm out of dryer.
Yeah?
I need a gas dryer. I can't find a gas dryer.
No?
But I went out for a nice drive and looked at a gas dryer that didn't work.
Well, I'm sure you'll find one in the next week or
Twice.
so. Yeah? So, do you do your laundry at home and air dry it, or do you go to a laundromat?
No. Well, up until now, I've been doing it at home.
Okay.
But I might be going to a laundromat this week.
I've been there, done that. I'll tell you what, I learned a long time ago. When you rent a place, of course, you own your home, but we rent ours. I've rented for good grief last 10 years or so. But when you rent, it's always best to make sure you can get a place with washer and dryer hookups, and at least have the washer and dryer provided. And if not, hey, you can at least get your own and hook it up, because you will save yourself some aggravation for sure by not having to go down to those. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are pretty dirty and dingy laundromats. I've sometimes wish I'd have just waited another week so my clothes would be dirtier than they were when they came out of the wash. So, not all of them. That's a pretty good lucrative business.
Why is it I can hear Sarah shaking her head? No.
Yeah, she's just over there looking at the board. Sarah, how are you doing tonight, sweetheart?
Well, I'm doing much better tonight than I did when I woke up this morning with a screaming, throat.
Yeah.
It didn't like me. It was in mass rebellion, so.
She wasn't feeling too good, so.
Oh.
But she's doing a little better.
I'm doing a little
tonight.
Better, still a little, but.
Originally, she wasn't going to be with us tonight, but since she wasn't feeling so well this morning, she decided not to go anywhere today. So she didn't go to her meeting that she had planned to go to tonight. She decided to stay here and let us be blessed with her presence.
Yes.
So.
The mass population can thank me later in notes and monetary gifts for not, passing on any germs to them later if they want to.
I just want to know, do Jason and I get the customary 10% off the pleasure of your company fee?
Okay, yes, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll let you guys have that.
I get a little bit more than that, though, for my 10%. I'll just tell you that. So she cooks, cleans, and all that other good stuff, and even provided me with a rubber chicken this week. That is San Antonia George, the first rubber chicken.
People need me.
Yes, we took him to Chick-Fil-A yesterday, didn't we, Sarah?
Yes, we did.
Yep. So I'll post that picture. I don't think I've posted that on our...
you haven't.
You went to Chick-Fil-A too?
Yeah, I sent you the picture. Did you get it?
I
can swear I sent you a picture of us.
I thought that was like an older picture or something.
No. We were at Chick-fil-A yesterday. We were eating, and we pulled out San Antonia George and set him up on the table just so we could take a picture of him. The place was unbelievably crowded. I thought for sure people were going to just look at us and go, what are these two fools over here doing with this rubber chicken?
I swear every softball and soccer team had decided to come in there.
But I looked around, and we didn't get any strange looks. I guess they were all preoccupied. That's fine with me. So we also got a picture on the way out the door with a sign with one of the cows and those silly sayings. But I was going to tell you, I was so tempted to take the picture that we took of the rubber chicken at the Chick-fil-A sign and airdrop it to every... Now, Jim, you're probably not familiar with airdrop. Airdrop is you can select a picture, and it tells you who close by in proximity has airdrop, and if they have it, you can send them a picture. You can send total strangers a picture. That's not what it's made for. It's made so if you're sitting with your friend or whatever and they want a picture you got on their phone, then you can do it that way. But I was so tempted to airdrop it to about 12 people and make a mad dash for my car.
Brain is gone.
Yes. So, anyway, we didn't do that because, I thought, it'll be safer to do that from the car and then I can just drive off. Well, I guess when I was in the car, the airdrop signal wasn't that strong, so we just decided not to do that. But yes, we went to Chick-fil-A. We had a good time. We did it. We went to where else did we went to the motorcycle shop?
Yes, we went to the motorcycle
And,
shop. And
where else did we go?
we went to Sam's Club.
Sam's Club. Yes, we did, and we picked up some groceries there.
And then we went to another grocery store called Sprouts.
Sprouts, which is a
more of an organic.
It's kind of like a farmer's market. That's what they call themselves, but it's not.
It's indoors, of course.
It's a grocery store.
Yeah, so it's really great, honestly.
I got sugar-free cookies, Jim. They were awesome.
Oh, and tell him about the little sweet potato pies.
Oh, yeah, they're little tiny. Unfortunately, those weren't sugar-free either.
Well, no. Why?
But I can eat sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are a little bit low in their sugars and carbs. Now, obviously, pie crust isn't low, but for a quick treat that satisfies the sweet tooth, it was awesome. So I ate about a half a package this morning, another half tonight. So, but it's diet food, right? That's why we order the chocolate cake and the Big Mac, and then order a Diet Coke with it. So.
Because we're trying to cut back.
Yes, we got to cut back. We'll cut back on something,
you're right? About this being a bad idea.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yep. So
Well, it's pretty weird that you ended up out of Chick-fil-A.
You did too.
I went to Chick-fil-A for the very first time. And
Really?
in front of me,
You've never been there before.
Well, the thing is that for the longest time, we only had one Chick-fil-A in the entire Metro Detroit area that was out at Oakland Community College, and I just never had occasion to be in there. Well, they opened one up at the Somerset Mall, which is I refer to as the rich people's mall. Love it.
You see,
Yeah.
now I always went to the 12 Oaks Mall in Nova.
Oh, yeah, it's 12 Oaks. 3 stories left.
And then, what was that name of that mall in Pontiac that we used to go
The
to?
Summit
The
Place.
Summit Mall, and it's closed down. I understand.
not
It's
to be-
abandoned.
Not to be confused with the mall I was at, which is the Somerset.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Somerset Mall opened their Chick-fil-A, and so went there for the first time, loved it. They, man alive, they moved. There was a line there when we were there, and it was the only place there that had a line.
Right.
If you wanted food, if you wanted to be next in line, you could have gone to any other place in their food court, and you would have been next in line.
Right.
But the way they moved through that line,
Yes.
it was a thing of beautiful military precision.
Military precision
and
in
talk
the food
about
court.
getting their stuff right. But there is a gentleman in front of me. You're in line. You got to talk to folk, right?
Right.
John McCann. And this is officially John McCann's shout out. Him and his lovely family were there for their first time. And he told me, he says, we meant to check out Chick-fil-A once before. We didn't have the opportunity. He says, I drove 2 hours and we're 40 minutes out of our way so we could be here enjoying Chick-fil-A. And we talked just a little bit about, how they've gotten the negative press, and we agreed, like the obligatory fist bump. Yes, and they're getting bad press for all of the right reasons, and we love these people, and that is why we are here. But I was there with my children, and we got the spicy chicken.
Have your kids
sandwich.
ever had Chick-fil-A before?
No, this was a first for all of
wow.
us.
And what was their opinion of it?
Oh, they enjoyed it.
Yeah?
They enjoyed it. My youngest, he's sitting there and he's like doing his like food review. He's like, yes, it was quite good with the spicy chicken, and I like it, and it was fresh, and all of this. And it's just I love hearing Aiden just start itemizing things like that. It does wonderful things for my brain.
Well,
it's like I didn't fail completely as a father.
I will let you in on a little Chick-fil-A secret, Jim.
Please do. Yeah.
I don't think in most places it's on the menu, but if you ask for it, they will probably have it tortilla soup, and it is out of this world.
It's
Yes.
a little spicy, though. You got to watch
It is a little spicy, and Sarah will tell you, I eat anything even with just a tiny little bit of black pepper. It doesn't burn my tongue, but boy, it does something to my skin. I'll start sweating like a stuck pig.
Ooh.
I will. I'll sweat, and Sarah kind of gets a tickle out of it. She'll run her fingers through my hair and stuff. So, yeah.
One of the things I thought was really cool, and I picked up on this, is when we came in there, we were the mall was going to close in a matter of a half hour or less.
Oh, wow.
And so we kind of felt like, well, are they going to be able to get to us? Oh, no, that was not a problem. So we got served, even though we were last in line, we ended up getting served in proper military fashion. But what I thought was really kind of cool is I get up there, and I ended up getting their deluxe, where you can get cheese and lettuce and tomato on there. And I'm going, it's the end of the day, and you didn't feel like you were getting end-of-the-day lettuce and tomatoes.
Really? All fresh.
It was all very fresh, like they were just starting their day out. And I was like, I didn't think about it until I'm sitting there munching on it, and I go, that was actually pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
End of their shift, and I'm getting brand spanking new, fresh stuff. I like this place.
All right. Well, that's our reviews of Chick-fil-A for the week.
Quick question, Jim. One quick question. Did you ever try the Chick-fil-A sauce?
I did.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
I like that. It kind of struck me as like almost like a honey mustard meat.
Exactly, yeah.
That's what we think.
It's like a honey mustard meets a Thousand Island almost.
Yeah, but it looks like a cheese sauce, but it has no cheese in it whatsoever.
Right.
But
Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's the color of cheese, though. And
then Aiden, of course, got the sweet and spicy sriracha sauce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your shout-out goes to John McCann.
John McCann and his lovely family. We shared our first experience at Chick-fil-A. His family and my family together. Woohoo! Shout out to you and yours.
I'll give a shout-out to Christy R., lady here in the Tularosa Basin over in Alamogordo. I used to be her supervisor. She joined the Biscuits and Gravy Bunch today. I better plug that while I'm at it. We've got a Facebook site called the Biscuits and Gravy Bunch. You know, I made the mistake when I set that up. I made it as a private group. I don't know if I'll say it was a mistake or not, but originally the intention was for people to help us with content. But it really, some of it's turned out that way, some of it hasn't. It's been more of a hey, this is where we post our pictures and talk about our silly stuff. But Christy joined that today, so I'll give a shout-out to her. I miss her wonderful humming. I used to get on to her because we worked in a call center, and she would hum while she was had the customers on a soft hold, and they would hear it. And we weren't supposed to do that. But sure, customers loved it, so I'd still have to mark her the points off, but she was quite a good hummer, I'll just say that. So, Christy R., you know who you are. It's good to have you as a listener and a member of the Biscuits and Gravy Bunch. So check out that page. We'd love to have you join, just as a place to meet, hang out, post some funny pictures. And we got some pretty good pictures this week, random pictures from folks' cell phones, and that was pretty fun.
Yep.
And so...
One of them actually taking place in Chick-fil-A. Actually.
Yes. Yeah, that actually, I'm going to say that right now. That was Shirley Hake.
Taking a photo
Sarah's
of my
mom.
dad.
Yeah, it was in Chick-fil-A under a picture of one of their signs, and they had a piece of paper that said, sorry, San Antonio George on it. So that was kind of funny. Now, San Antonio George is the first rubber chicken for the Rubber Chicken Club. So, again, we're asking, once we start the live broadcast on June 9th, we'll be doing trivia and prizes, and the prizes are going to start out being rubber chickens. At least some of them will be. Once you get your rubber chicken, we ask that you take a photograph of yourself and send it to our fantastic website at Gmail, along with your mailing address and your birth date. And at the end of the year, or every so often, Jim and I will judge those photos and enter you for a much larger, much better prize than a rubber chicken. Not saying a whole lot, I know.
Don't expect a Ferrari.
No Ferraris. You might get something like an Egg Dash or something like that, or something small, you know. But occasionally we might throw in something really amazing. We did. You remember, Jim? A couple years ago, we gave out Roku TV players.
Yes.
That was fun. That was cool. We also gave away Omaha steaks, a package of Omaha steaks. So we might do something like that in one of those big prizes, but it'll be fun. So
you're making me hungry, honey.
We just ate, sweetheart. Well, no, that's not true. I did. I cooked hot dogs on the grill.
Yes.
You haven't
And
you
I
haven't
love-
had anything yet, have we? Normally eat and cook together, but she wasn't feeling well. So
It's one of those days where you get to create your own timeline for food intake.
yes,
Shall we say?
as we used to call it, fend for yourself day.
Yes,
You-
exactly.
Do you ever have days like that around your house with your kids, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I
ramen
try
noodles
to
are good
make sure
for.
we've got stuff ready for them, but there's a lot of days where it's like, okay, I gotta get going. You guys, we got food in the fridge. Go check it out.
Does anybody ever
Something
resort
bad.
to snacking on Fufu's food?
Oh no, not Fufu's food.
You will lose a limb. It's going to be like the Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail all over again.
Right.
Oh no.
My favorite line in that movie. It's just a scratch.
'Twas only a flesh
Fresh
wound.
wound.
so-
Right, yeah.
It's been a long time
Brave
since I've seen that
Robin.
movie. Wow.
Well, at least you guys don't eat Welsh rarebit, so I always kind of think that sounds like rabbit. So
Jim, Sarah and I saw a movie last week. I want to tell you about it. I'm sure you've heard about it. The movie is called Unplanned.
I've heard of it.
It's an amazing movie. Now, as a Christian, I'll just tell you how I feel. I've always been against abortion. I always feel it's murder. How can you not be against murder in general to the nth degree as a Christian? Well, even as a human being, but as a Christian even more so, because we realize and understand that we were made in the image of God. We're His children. We're His creation. So I've always had a general, I'll just use the word, it's because it's okay to hate sin. I've had a hatred for abortion. And I've always been passionate about it, but I've had my reasons for that. But I'll tell you what, when we went and saw this movie, Unplanned, I came out of the presentation asking myself, what in the world can I do more to help this cause? It's really a thought-provoking movie. Now, I will warn you, if you take your children to see this film, there are some very graphic scenes in it.
yes,
Now, there's
definitely.
I'll say this, there's not any nudity in it. For anything like you would expect to see in a doctor's office or anything like that. Nothing like that, but there is a lot of blood spillage. I'll just put it that way. A few, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, was there a few clips of body pieces?
Yes, you would be correct.
I think there, but
Honey.
even then, it wasn't done in a way that was sickening. I'll just put it that way. I mean, it's sickening in nature and in thought, but not. It wasn't a picture made to gross you out. It was a picture. It might have had that effect, but I don't think it was made to do that. It was made to make you think. And
Yes. It was made to gross you out in an aspect of the fact that this is such a grotesque act.
have you seen any previews for it, Jim?
No, I haven't.
I'm sure you've read about it or heard about it on Facebook or social
I've
media.
heard a little bit about it.
Well, as soon as you can, I'd recommend you go see it somewhere. A lot of churches are having viewings. They had a church here in town that had a viewing. We weren't able to make that one. But it's a good movie. We also saw one 2 weeks before that, Sarah. What was the name of that?
I don't know, honey.
Or maybe it was the last one we saw. But anyway, there's a lot of good Christian films playing right now. There's one being put out by Fox right now called, was it Unbroken?
Breakthrough. Honey.
Breakthrough. I don't know why I'm thinking Unbroken. Breakthrough. Seen the trailers for that. That looks pretty good.
Yes, it does.
So, but that's made by Fox. It's a true story about a young man in St. Charles, Missouri, my stomping grounds, my old stomping grounds, who was under the ice and was clinically dead, I think they said, for approximately an hour.
Almost,
And,
yeah.
yeah, his mother, I mean, they called his mother in and said, say goodbye to your son. And she was in tears and cried out loud and asked God to come in and put life back into her son, breathe life back into her son, and immediately he got a heartbeat. And really a good movie. So, Jim, how has your week been filled?
My week profitably.
Profitably?
You've got to love profitably.
That we could all have a profitably filled week.
Which basically means I've been working.
Aww.
Oh.
But no, it's been a good week. Managed to get a fair bit of stuff done. I was going to say, since we're talking about what was the name of the movie again?
The first one was Unplanned. The second one,
Unplanned.
Yes.
There's something, and I don't know a lot about the organization, but if they are what they sound like, I'll preface it that way. Something that folks might want to check out. It's called Abolish Abortion, and they've got kind of an interesting perspective, because where we have, since Roe v. Wade, we've kind of had this attitude of, well, the less the better. And we've kind of made concessions, like we're going to accept this on certain levels. And Abolish Abortion says, no, that's not somewhere where we need to be. We need to reel this back to a pre-Roe v. Wade attitude and say, no, we wouldn't accept this in any other set of circumstances. Why are we accepting it here? And I don't know a lot about the organization. So I want to endorse them gently.
Sure.
And if somebody sees something that is not in keeping with their otherwise with Christian sentiments, but from what I see out of them, I don't see anything so far that I think would be objective of that. But worth looking into, because sometimes what we need to do is we've been so long in some of these fights that we forget what ground we've lost morally. And what it seems to me that the Abolish Abortion organization is doing is they're resetting this back to where the conversation was and where we need to go back to. And I appreciate that.
Well, it's a very good, thought-provoking movie, and as a Christian, you'll come out asking. I hope that you do come out asking yourself what you can do more than just pray, or even pray more. Pray more than you are.
Right.
So there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
So
I have a friend who, back home in her hometown, literally there is a Planned Parenthood like 5 blocks from her, but they're off the main street, so you can't see where they are. But
how convenient.
Yes, how convenient for them. It's amazing because right across that main street there is a Christian alternative to Planned Parenthood where they give you options, and it's not about aborting the baby's life or anything like that. It's to help the mother find different alternatives. So
I will say this. There have been reports. I don't know how true they are or how substantiated they are, but there are reports that nearly, and the number may be higher now, nearly 100 employees of Planned Parenthood, after they have seen the movie Unplanned, have made the announcement that they intend to quit their jobs. So, while praying for this cause, we need to pray as well that these people, thank God that their hearts are being turned, but also these are people that are looking for other employment as well, because they still have to provide for their family. So we can pray that God will bless them in that aspect as well.
And meet them in the way.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Jim, I found some interesting quotes this week. I got a couple of them here I'm going to give you, and I'm going to see if you... I'll give you a couple of them, and there's one I'm going to give you the quote, and you'll never... I'm going to let you guess and see if you can guess who said it. So the first quote is, and this is by John D. Rockefeller, and he said, "I can think of nothing less pleasurable than a life devoted to pleasure." I can, right off the top of my head. How about a life devoted to an eternity of pleasure?
There you go.
Yeah. You know, I saw a guy one time giving a speech, and he had this long rope, and it was like several hundred feet of rope. He said, now, just imagine that this rope doesn't end. And he held up the one end of it, the first end of it. And it had a yellow tape wrapped around the first 4 inches of it. And he said, this 4 inches, this is your life. This is your life on earth. The rest of it is your life in eternity. And how well the rest of your life in eternity is played out depends on the decisions and the way you live your life in the first 4 inches. And I thought, how thought-provoking. Of course, he was getting to the plan of salvation, saying the most important decision you can make is to repent and ask Christ to come into your heart and live a life for him. So when I thought of John D. Rockefeller, I thought, how sad that somebody would think there's nothing less pleasurable than a life devoted to pleasure, when something more pleasurable is a life devoted to an eternity of pleasure versus the eternity of the alternative. So I'm waiting, Jim. What do you got to think about that?
No, that's really good. There was a philosopher, who's often touted as one of the best of the modern philosophers, Bertrand Russell. When he was asked why he did not believe in God, he said, if I believe in God, then I'm going to have to change the way I live. And I thought, my goodness, this is what represents a great mind in our time.
Yeah.
Somebody who says, I don't believe in God because I don't believe that there's no evidence for God. I believe in God because it makes me responsible. Wait a second. What are you admitting to?
Right.
You're admitting that you're not that great of a thinker after all. This is the best thing you've got as a reason. You'd have to change the way you live. How about we talk about the nature of truth? Is there a God or is there not a God? But it's interesting. That was Bertrand Russell. I didn't quote him exactly, but that was the gist of what he had to say.
You know, I was working with a young man one time, and I was asking him how his weekend was going, if he had any plans, and he started to go into all of his plans for the weekend, and I will say this, they were less than honorable. And he started talking about what he was going to do on his dates and where he was going to go and all this. He said, Jason, how come you never do any of this stuff? And I remember exactly what I told him. And the reason I remember what I told him is because I'll never forget the look on his face when I finished telling him it. And what I told him was, I said, you know, an eternity in hell is not worth the payment of a moment of satisfaction or gratification. And he looked at me, and his face just went blank. You could tell he was sinking that in. And he said, I never really thought about that. And then he made the comment that I may have to change my plans. Of course, that opened up the door for me to go into a little bit more. What are you doing
Sunday morning?
Right, exactly. Let me help you change your plans. But it's true. Now you and I know that sin will send us to hell, but not just sin, our sinful nature. We're born with it. The Bible teaches us that. It's not living a good life that determines whether. Now I know I'm preaching to the choir here, folks, but it's
That's okay.
It's not.
Let me get my hanky out.
Right. Okay. Wave it high.
I need a really really large hat here.
Okay. So sin is what sends us to hell. We're born with that nature, and we're sinners, but we're saved by grace. You remember Johnny Pope used to say, when we talk about that, sometimes we get the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. Right. Because you hear preachers, I'm a dirty, rotten, filthy sinner. They're yelling and then, but I'm saved by grace. Should be the other way around. Don't be proud of your dirty, rotten sin. Hallelujah, I'm saved by grace. Shout that to the rooftops. So,
and so we're not just talking to the choir, because when we say the word grace. Now, I know you know what grace is.
I sure do.
Grace is, and Sarah knows what grace is.
Yes, sir.
But just in case there's somebody listening that doesn't quite... Grace is one of those religious words that it means something to us, but it doesn't mean what it should mean to everybody. So, having said that, why don't you take that word grace and unpack that just a little bit for folks?
For me, the grace of God is unmerited and undeserving favor shown for no apparent reason. That's what it is to me. What's it to you, Jim? How would you unpack it?
I don't deserve it. I can't earn it, but God gave it to me anyways.
I just said that.
That's what you just said.
It is, yes. So
I think we're in consensus here.
we are.
guys.
And I'm kind of was expecting and hoping for one of those big words Jim uses, but
No, that would be counterproductive in this circumstance.
well, yeah, grace it's so mysterious and amazing, and for us, it's complicated, but it's not. All we have to do is accept it. We don't have to understand the why. We really don't. We just have to understand the how. Mm-hmm. How to accept it. And the Bible tells us how to do that. And if you don't know how to do that, go grab your nearest Christian friend. And if you don't have one, might I suggest you make some? You can learn a lot from them. Contrary to what the media will tell you. I read something the other day that somebody in one of the governments had made a statement that the Jews and the Christians were the enemy of the country. And that just made my heart sink. And my stomach turn, I'll add that. We're not. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why that in this culture that we live in today, Christians are perceived as the enemy. And there's only one reason for it, because if you get to know a Christian, you get to know about God's love, we're the best friend you could ever have. The reason that they're trying to tell you is we're the enemy is because that's exactly what Satan wants. That's exactly what he wants. Because it will do more damage to harm the cause of Christ if everybody is, I'll use the word, brainwashed into thinking that the Christians are full of hate, they're terroristic, and you don't want to have anything to do with them. They'll close the door on you. People that believe that will close the door on you before you get a chance to open your mouth once they find out you're a Christian.
No, you're absolutely right.
So, anyway.
The other thing is pardon me if I chase a rabbit just a smidge here.
Chase a rabbit, Jim.
This is me. Foo-foo, start running.
Don't run too far, Foo-Foo, okay?
Hey, get back here, George. Go ahead.
It's kind of funny to me that people that want to say that Christians are the enemy of this country are really in disagreement with the founders of
Absolutely.
this country.
We've had a whole show on that before.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yep. Now, you go back, and I'm not going to chase this too far, but let's talk about our precious rights. Everybody wants to talk about their rights and how they perceive their rights. Where do your rights come from? Your rights, looking at our founding documents, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, your rights are inalienable. They cannot be taken from you. They are yours intrinsically. If you write your name down on a piece of paper, and right next to your name is your rights. I'm a human being, and therefore, as a human being, I have these rights. Well, who says so? Your Creator. Now, the problem is that if your rights come from any other source, if your rights are the endowment of a government, no matter how good that government is, if that government changes, if the laws change, if the constitution of that government changes, your rights disappear. It amazes me that we say, well, we want to be more like France, we want to be more like Canada, we want to be more like these other countries. Well, wait a second. America is the only country that has had a constitution that has been in existence for going on 250 years.
Yeah. Some people will come up and defend certain people who have been in the history, such as, Che Guevara or whatever.
Yeah.
And not know what he stood for. And they have to be told, well, okay, do you believe in this? Do you believe in that? Well, you would have been executed by now for believing in those things because he didn't believe in those
by the
things.
person whose face you're wearing on your T-shirt. We saw a clip of that just the other day.
Right.
So, I will say this too. You talk about your rights being given to you by God, and I'm trying to find it right now. But there was a case in the late 1800s. It was a Supreme Court case. I'll find it though. basically the United States Supreme Court recognized and that the Second Amendment right was not given by the Second Amendment. It's guaranteed by the Second Amendment, but the Supreme Court ruled that was a right we were born with, and that it was brought in. It's an inherent right, or a right that we're just naturally born with. Every human being is born with. The Supreme Court recognized that. I'm trying to remember the name of the Supreme Court case, Kushaloff or something like that. I don't remember. And it actually had to do, and I may be corrected on this later, but it had to do with some African American folks who were arrested for carrying firearms to defend themselves. And this was, like I said, in the late 1800s. And the Supreme Court said, oh, no, they didn't violate any laws. So, and that was part of their statement, was that those rights are given to us before the Second Amendment was brought into existence. So that's something to think about, too.
I would venture to say that we find that principle in Scripture.
Sure.
At the very least, in the New Testament, we'll leave the Old Testament alone because people like to say the Old Testament's a lot harsher. I disagree with that, but I'll put that aside for the time.
Sure.
Luke, Luke 22:36. Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, "If any man hath not a sword,
yes,
let him sell his coat and buy himself a sword." And you have to understand that a sword, a staff was a force continuum. It could kill, but you really had to put some effort into it. A sword was lethal force inherently. And here you have red ink. Jesus is speaking, "If any man hath not a sword, let him sell his coat and buy himself a sword." And you look at the context, and amongst 12 disciples, there were 2 swords. Jesus says it is enough. So this wasn't to challenge the state.
Right.
But when the disciples would be traveling, and whenever you would have a group of people, how many people would you put on guard duty at night?
Right. Mm-hmm. I remember you and I talking about this. Yep.
You'd have 2 people on guard duty. So the 2 people that were on guard duty were the 2 people that had a sword. So this is establishing personal defense. So here you have, within Scripture, red ink, that you can use lethal force to defend the precious gift of life against lethal force.
Right.
And that's what Luke 22:36 establishes.
I'm going to go back real quick to what you said about the Founding Fathers. This is one of my quotes this week. Andrew Jackson said, "The Bible is the rock on which the Republic rests." When he was talking about the Republic, he was talking about our form of government. I'm so tired of people saying, well, this is a threat to our democracy. We do not have a democracy. Correct. We are a republic. And
a democratic republic.
Yes, but we are a republic, not a... yes,
that's right.
Yes, we're a republic that has democratic features and functions. But still, I think it was Tucker Carlson. Did I say his name right, Sarah?
Yes, you did,
Yes,
sir.
Tucker Carlson that kind of basically said, or it might have been Ben Shapiro, in a democracy, if they want your car, they take it. In a republic, it doesn't work that way. You're bound by the guidelines of the republic. But anyway, here's another good quote, and I love this because this applies to something that happened just this last week. I love this. Howard Hughes. You remember the eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes, right?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember him, Jim?
Yep.
So he said, once you consent to some concession, you can never cancel it and put things back the way they are. Now, I will say, in general, that is true. But I like what Trump did this week at the NRA convention when he pulled us all out of the NRA Small Arms Treaty. Did you hear about this?
No,
I'm sorry, the United Nations Small Arms Treaty. It was basically one small step, so I'm told, towards the illegalization and confiscation of some sorts of firearms in America. Trump said, nope, we're done with this. We're out of it. So, Howard Hughes, you got that one wrong. So, here's another good quote, and this is the one I want you to guess. Sarah, I'll let you be on this, too, if you haven't read this already. Who said this? The Bible is the study guide for social interaction. Now, I'm not going to let you guess too long on this because I know you're not going to get it. But go ahead and try.
Well, I'm going to let Jim try this one because I've got it right in front of
Oh,
me.
okay, you do. Okay, all
Social
right.
interaction.
The Bible is the study guide for social interaction.
For sheer irony's sake, I'm going to say Don Rickles.
No, but you're close. No, you're not.
Oh, really?
No, you're not even close.
No,
Oh,
No,
okay.
but that's funny. That's a funny answer.
this guy had a name, then he didn't have a name, then
Yes,
he had a name.
he was a Jehovah's Witness too.
Was he?
Prince?
Yes, he was. You
Yes,
got it.
all right,
Prince.
way to go, Jim.
Oh, my word.
Prince said the Bible is a study guide for social interaction, and that's true. It is.
I was just amazed in the fact that he was born in Minnesota. Honestly, I think if I'm correct.
I might have read that somewhere. I never was. I never liked anything he did. I did see a clip of him one time on Sesame Street, and I got to admit I was a little entertained. He was singing some song about a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Well, he had me at the
wow.
peanut butter and jelly
Peanut
sandwich.
butter and
Yes,
jelly. I mean, really, why not?
yes. So,
Just for grins,
yeah.
You mind if I share a quote?
no, go right
Sure,
ahead.
Go right ahead.
And this is one of those that I'll tell you this much: it was a founding father,
Okay.
Okay.
but probably once I give the quote, probably not one that you would guess. This is in a letter. He says, "I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings, that except the Lord build, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this. And I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. We shall be divided by our little partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and a byword down to future age. And what is worse, mankind may hereafter, from this unfortunate instance, despair of establishing governments by human wisdom and leave it to chance, war, and conquest. I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the insistence of heaven and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service."
Wow.
Can you
said
say
it?
that again? No, I'm just kidding. I was.
Honey, be quiet.
I was going to guess at first, but now I'm going to change my mind. I was going to guess George Washington, but now I'm thinking it might have been Thomas Jefferson.
Nope.
Neither. Okay. Sarah, do you want to venture a guess?
Franklin?
Yes.
Benjamin
Yes!
Franklin. Yeah, good for you,
It was
hon.
Ben Franklin. And the reason I find that so fun is because of, as soon as we're told, well, the founding fathers were deists and spiritists and they weren't Christians at all.
Right.
This is what the one founding father, or one of the few founding fathers of whom that is actually a true statement.
Right.
This quote came from him.
Mm-hmm. They realized that you had to have a unifying rock, and that rock was God and Jesus.
And calling upon the clergy of this city, he was engaging mainstream Christian thought.
Yes. It was a beautiful
Very good.
thing. Beautiful thing that our founding fathers did for us.
Let me go back just a little bit. That Supreme Court case I was ruling about, it just came up on my screen. United States versus Cruikshank, and that's spelled Cruikshank. It was from 1876. So if you want to look that up and do a little research on that, that's pretty interesting. I'll just leave that there at that. So, anyway, let's get into a little bit of gravy here, Jim, shall we? We've had a lot of biscuits this show.
I think we would have.
So-
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some of the culture things from the cultural things from the 1970s. I got to share 10 years of that decade with my family. Sarah had half that time. So
Yeah, that's really not fair on your two.
I know. Well, hey, it. Anyway, what do you remember, Jim? I'll tell you one thing I remember from the 1970s to get things started. It kind of faded away, no pun intended, into the early 80s. Shag carpet.
Ew.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have family members that had shag carpet?
I was a family member that had shag carpet.
Oh, I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
but you didn't start
Jim.
shaving until the late 80s. Yeah. No, you guys had shag carpet, right? What color was yours?
Green.
Green.
It was almost, like an olive.
I was going to say
green.
avocado pea or,
Yeah, kind of like a pea or a olive type of a green.
Now, I will tell you this: in our home, for a little while, we had a brown shag carpet. But I remember, and this was the classic color of all shag carpet, orange.
I was going to say
Burnt
pink.
orange.
I was going to say
Yeah.
pink.
I called it the Brady Bunch orange
Right.
because I think they had that. I could be wrong, but it just looked like something the Brady Bunch would have in their house.
I thought they just had AstroTurf in their lawn.
That was in their yard, yeah.
I know.
So,
but still, nevertheless.
what other things do you remember from the 1970s, Jim?
Oh, well, there's a couple of things, and they kind of fit together. I remember at Kmart.
Uh-huh.
Kmart would have these delis, and in the delis they'd have these little. They run like a hamburger bun, but they were these little ham sandwiches. And they'd have like a slice of American cheese and some lettuce and some mayo on there. And you'd buy them in like a sandwich bag, and they'd all be stacked up in the sandwich bag. But one of the really cool things you could get would be a Coke slush.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was like some special stuff. But one of the really cool things about that is they would come in these specialty cups. And I remember in the 70s, the big movies that were coming out at the time was you had, of course, Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
King Kong. And Star Wars there in 76. Now, kind of on the tail of that, you also had... Now, I might be drifting into the 80s, but I think this is still the 70s.
That's for the next show, the 80s.
McDonald's
Yeah.
had the glasses.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember they had a whole series of them, but I remember they had the Star Wars... They had a series of Star Wars glasses.
Sure.
And as a kid, I just remember thinking that was the coolest thing ever.
Well, I remember the glasses from McDonald's that had the characters, like the McBurglar and
Oh, yeah.
all those
Grimace,
glasses. Grimace, yes, Grimace.
How
and
could you forget
and the
Grimace?
Hamburglar.
the mayor.
Yes.
So, I will tell you this. We were traveling on vacation one time. If my brother Zach hears this, he's going to be a little bit embarrassed. I wasn't going to say his name, but I guess I just did. One of my little brothers was up inside one of the hamburgers that had the little bars going around it. You climbed up through the middle, and
they had the playground out front.
Right. One of my little brothers was just up there. He couldn't have been very old, but he was up there sitting out with his little legs dangling out the window of that hamburger. And my other brother, who was a little bit older than that brother, just kind of walked up behind him and pushed him out.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
pushed him out. He fell down. I don't think he broke his arm, but he sprained it really good. He was in a cast for a good few weeks. But I will say this. McDonald's called us constantly. This was out of state, but they called us constantly to make sure he was okay and doing all right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it wasn't too terribly long after that, I think. They did away with some of those outdoor playgrounds. Now you go into McDonald's and everything's soft plastic balls and slides.
Well, of course.
So-
I mean, because who doesn't want a ball pit, right?
That's a whole nother show right there. I've heard some horror stories about the ball pits.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, people jumping in. I don't know how true they are. Kids getting sick in them, stuff like that. I don't know.
Whole lot of surface area for germs. We'll just leave it
There,
at that.
that is true. That's very, very true.
Yes.
Sarah, do you remember anything, maybe from '79?
Well, let's see here. I remember the Muppet Show, of course.
Yeah, who doesn't love the Muppet Show?
When we had like a throwback to the 70s, my wonderful uncle gave me, or gave us, I should say, our family, a lava lamp. So
Yeah.
we kind of
Lava
got
lamps are awesome.
yes, we got a throwback. So that's a good thing.
They still sell those, too.
Yeah, they do. You know, I was so surprised to find out that the top of it, if you look under the little black top, it actually has a bottle cap on the top of it.
A bottle cap?
On the glass
A bottle
part.
cap.
Yes, that's what holds all the liquid in.
Oh, okay. Okay, so not like a soda bottle cap, but
Yes, actually.
Well, it
soda.
looked like a soda bottle cap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so-
You'll have to show me that sometime.
Well, you know, the next time we go back to my parents' house, but, you know. Did I tell you the story about my birthday party? And
I think this is the one we're going to have your mom come on and tell us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, eventually. Eventually, yes.
Okay, so
Sometime we're going to have a trivia night, and we're going to invite some of our listeners to come on and participate in the games. That'll be fun. We'll
Yes.
try to get your mom and dad on there too. That'll be
Yeah.
that'll be a blast. Jim, you have any other? What was your favorite television shows from the 70s
Oh goodness, TV shows from the 70s.
or toys?
Well, I remember Saturday morning cartoons.
Speed
Oh,
Buggy. Do you remember
of
Speed Buggy?
course.
I had forgotten all about that sound until you just made it. Yes.
Whoa,
Oh.
Jim! Wow.
It was like watching Scooby Doo, except Scooby Doo turned into a car.
Right.
Pretty much.
No,
Yep,
I
that was
always
it.
I always loved Scooby Doo, but that was on weekdays for me. And then
Right.
there was always I was a classic Bugs
Bunny?
Bunny
Oh
gal.
yeah, Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes, yes. Marvin the Martian, Daffy Duck, Yosemite Sam. You had to love those guys.
There was another show too. I don't remember much about it, but it was like Land of the Lost with dinosaurs or something.
Oh
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then of course, and that might have been
The
80s
Slee
too.
Stack,
Yeah.
Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition. I'll
Yep.
spare you my singing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
George said thanks.
Yes.
So yeah, there's what about toys? Did you have any favorite toys in the 70s?
See, I'm trying to remember whether this was the 70s or not. That's the problem.
Okay, we'll throw it out there.
I remember when
I had
Battlestar Galactica came
Oh.
out.
Yeah.
And I had I didn't have the Cylon, the bad guy's spaceship, but I had the Colonial Viper, and there was this one kind of janky one that it like had all these extra parts. It's a collector's item now, but it had all these extra parts that never actually made it onto the show because somebody at Mattel or whoever it was that made it decided that you needed to have a little extra flexibility in how you put this thing together. But it had extra parts that weren't actually in the show. But that was the Colonial Viper spaceship that Starbuck and all those guys flew in to go off and defend the Battlestar Galactica against the ruthless Cylons.
Do you remember the $6 Million Man action figure?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That had the little glass eye with the little peephole in the back of the head that you could look through.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Right there.
Well, he had the bionic eye where he could see, 3 miles away in the TV show. Yeah, thanks. There you go, Jim. So when they came out with the action figure, they decided to give him the bionic eye. So they put this tiny little magnifying glass or telescopic lens in his head, so you could peek in the back of his head. There was a hole in the back of his head, and you could look out through his glass eye. And it was like a magnification of 0.2 or something, but
Wow.
I remember that. It came with a little hyperbaric chamber that you could put him in.
Yep.
I think that's where Michael Jackson got his idea. Maybe he had one of those when he was a kid. I don't
I
know.
don't know, yeah. I had a little record player, honestly.
Yeah?
Yeah, and because our basement was cement, I had a pair of roller skates. The ones where you put them on your tennis shoes.
The metal ones,
Yep.
right?
Right.
Yeah, with the leather straps. Yep, I had some of those too. I don't think they did. I wonder, you could probably get those on Amazon now.
Probably. But, I also liked, what was it, fashion plates. I don't know if those were 80s or not, where you'd, put all of these different dress plates or whatever, and then you'd rub a crayon over it, and then you could color it in. It was a girl thing, but, hey, we had to have our things, too, while you guys had your things.
That reminds me of the Shrinky Dinks.
Yes.
Did you have Shrinky Dinks, Jim?
Where you stick
A
them
little
in the
bit.
oven.
And then
A little bit. I think I had those once or twice.
And then there was the spiral drawing tools.
The spirograph.
Spirographs.
When I was sick in the hospital last year, when I was a kid, I wasn't too bad with that. Sarah sent me a kit to play with in the hospital that had the spiral, and she sent me stationery. So I wrote her some sweet little love letters.
Granted, it was a knockoff set to spirograph.
Yes.
It wasn't the thing.
But I got onto that thing, and I realized real quick I'm not that hand-eye coordinated enough to do a spirograph. So I gave up real quick on that. I ended up giving it back to Sarah.
And
what did we do with it?
We're going to give it to the thrift shop.
We're going to donate it to the thrift store.
Hopefully
so.
some child will be entertained with it.
Absolutely.
And but so there was the Shrinky Dinks, but there was also the ones where you put the little plastic pellets in this empty, what do I want to say? It kind of looks like stained glass.
Yeah, the stained glass kits. I remember those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you made ornaments or whatever you wanted to out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, for a second I thought you were talking about, when you mentioned the little plastic pellets, I thought you were talking about Light Bright.
Oh, I remember those too. Yeah, that was a good one.
Were really great, yeah. Etch-a-Sketch, those were great.
Yep.
I think both of those toys are still around. I know Etch-a-Sketch is. I think Light Bright is. Mm-hmm. But I know it came out with some warnings, not for children under a certain age, because I guess kids were eating the little light pellets. Or the little things, but one toy I remember. I'll mention this real quick: the Big Wheels.
Oh,
do you remember that?
Yeah.
I wanted a big. That was the one toy I never got growing up. I wanted a Big Wheel so bad, and I loved going over to a friend's house when he had one. So there was a reason why I never got it, but I'm not going to go into that on this show. So anyway.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever have a Big Wheels, Jim?
I'm trying to think if I ever did. I don't know if I did or not.
No, well that's okay.
I had some other cool riding type toys, but I tell you what, a big wheel. I'd like to find somebody that makes a big wheel for adults.
I think there is a company that does that now.
Kid you not, I would ride that thing in my neighborhood.
I could just
without shame, no shame.
I could see you doing that too.
I would do that too.
That's saying something for where you live too.
Adult Big Wheels. So
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you could get one with like a sidecar for one of your kids or something.
There you go.
I like it.
Hey, one other thing, Jim. I want to tell you, I found a website. It's pretty interesting. Take it for what it's worth. It's a Christian news website. It's called worthynews.com. Just take it for what it's worth. Thought maybe the listeners would want to check that out. Also, real quick, this is a great app. I use it at work all the time. I don't have a scanner or fax machine that will work with my work computer. So what I use is an app on my phone. It's called Tiny Scanner. It does the scanning part, and then usually I just email the scanned document to myself and then send it on to whoever needs it. But it is called Tiny Scanner, and it's a great app. We'll follow that up with a website later that you can actually send free faxes from your phone. We'll talk about that later in another show. But Tiny Scanner is great. Do you have anything like that on your phone, Jim?
Well, not a utility.
Okay.
I'm not that.
We'll just get you the big wheel.
Practical these days.
Yeah,
give me the big wheel. But
that's our show title. Jim wants a big wheel. There we go.
Jim wants a big wheel. Yes.
Yeah. So
no, my soon-to-be stepson James, Raven James, he turned me on to this game.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it's more addicting than it should be.
What's the name of the game?
It's called Car Tycoon.
Car Tycoon. We'll check that out. Jim, I hate to cut this short, but we are out of time. There he is. We're out of time, but that's okay. We'll be back next week because we're gonna do another show in just a few minutes, Jim, because I don't know if Jim remembers this or not, but Sarah and I and Seth will be out of town next week, so we're going to pre-record next week's show now and post it then. So anyway, just remember that making a friend is one of the best investments you can make, so why don't you make a new investment this week? And Jim, I'll let you give your favorite public service announcement.
Public service announcement. Please turn on your Amber Alerts. The life you save may be someone that you know and care about.
You think if I went missing, they'd give me an Amber Alert?
They wouldn't have to.
They wouldn't. Why is that?
I would come for you, Jason.
Oh, well, that's all I need, the ninja on the big wheel. So
that's right.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all have a good night, good day, good week. Sarah, how about you taking the last word?
Well, thank you very, very much, both of you, for being with me in this time when I'm a little feeling under the weather.
Not feeling so good.
So, yeah, I appreciate it to both of you.
Feel better?
I will. You guys feel better, too. I don't know how, but...
Good night, everybody.
Good night.